Hello everybody, this is Matt from Stone Ridge Landscapes. Today I'm going to be going over what I believe are the most essential tools in Google SketchUp, and I'm going to be using them to make this basic chair over here. And if you have SketchUp on your computer, you can follow along. I'll try to go as slow as I can, and I'll try to explain the tools and the shortcuts and everything I'm doing in as much detail as I can, so it'll be easy to follow along, hopefully. So if you want to make a new file right now, we can get started on this chair. So the first thing that you need to know about Google SketchUp is how to move around while you're modeling. And there are three different tools that I use. And I'll go into them in detail, but I'll just show you what they are first. The first one is you can zoom. So you zoom in and out. And that's just by using the scroll wheel. You can orbit like this. And then there's panning. So you kind of just click and drag. So to zoom, you just scroll on the mouse wheel. And the thing about this is wherever your cursor is, that's where you zoom into. So right now I'm zooming into the seat on this chair. If I wanted to go over here, then I would just put my mouse there and I would just scroll in. So this is kind of weird at first, but I struggled with it a lot, but I've gotten used to it. So then there's orbiting. You can actually select the orbit tool over here, or you can just click in the middle mouse wheel. And you hold it and you just drag and you can orbit around. And then there's panning, which you can select any tool from here. With these kind of tools, I find it easiest to just use the shortcuts, but whatever you want to use, whatever you're most comfortable with. So the shortcut for the pan tool is you hold down the mouse button and you press shift or hold shift. And like once you get used to these tools and you can kind of use them without thinking about it, it gets a lot easier. So if I wanted to like look at the bottom of this chair, just kind of do that. But at first it's difficult to do that. You have to get used to them. But that's just something that comes with time. Okay, I'm going to start modeling this chair starting with the legs. And the tool that I'm going to use for that is the shapes tool. And you can find it right up here. See, shapes. If you click on this arrow, it'll bring a drop-down menu and there are different shapes you can use. But for right now, I'm just going to use rectangles. So you can actually just select it from the toolbar up there. Or if you wanted to use a shortcut, you can see how it has this R next to it. That means if I'm down here and I just have my regular mouse, I can press R just to bring up the rectangle tool. And it just makes it a little bit easier, so you don't have to be going back and forth from the model to the toolbar, and it just makes it a little bit easier. But you can do whatever works for you. So now that we have the rectangle tool selected, how you use it is you just click and pull. You don't even have to hold the click down, you just click once and you pull. And then you get the rectangle to whatever size you want. And then you just click again, and now this is a rectangle. Down here is the dimensions of the rectangle, so this is about 10 inches by 12 inches. And I don't want that, I want 2 inches by 2 inches for this. So you can just type in 2 inches, comma, 2 inches, and enter. And that puts the rectangle at the correct size. So now I can manipulate this and do whatever I want with it. The first thing that you really want to do is you gotta click it 3 times to select the whole thing, because this is actually 5 different pieces. There's the inside part, and then there's lines. So if you tried to move this, it would think you're just trying to move the one line, and you don't want that. You want to use the entire rectangle. So what you do is you select the whole thing, you right click, and you make group. So now this is one rectangle by itself. And I want to make this rectangle into one of these legs. So now that it's a group, you have to double click to get into it. And you can select the center part of the square like that. Now I'm going to use the push-pull tool, which you can find over here, or you can press P to select it. And to use this, you just click whatever section is highlighted, and you can just pull. And so I want this to be this height, which is 19 inches. So you can do the same thing as we did with the square, where you can just pull this shape out to any kind of length, and you can just type in 19 inches. And now it's 19 inches tall. So now we have one of our legs, and we want 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the move tool, which is up here. You can select it like that, or you can press M for move. And to use the move tool, you need to have a shape selected. So this is not selected, but this is, since it's highlighted in blue. So I'd take the move tool, and I can pick it up by this corner. And now I'm moving this shape around. And you can move it in any direction. Sometimes it's kind of difficult because it's a 3D space on a computer, but you can select the different axes. So if I wanted to move it along this red axis, then I could press the right arrow, and that makes it so that it's only going along that axis. Same as the green one, that's a different arrow, that's the left arrow. You can move it up or down with the up or down arrow. Or if you press the same arrow again, you can just go back to free moving it. So I'm going to do the red axis. And to copy, you just click the control button. So I'm going to pull this leg 19 inches to the right. So I pulled it out, and now I can press 19 inches again. And that didn't do anything. I don't know why, but I'm going to just try that again. "19 inches. Okay. And now this is 19 inches apart. So I want to now do that again. I'm going to select both. And to do that, you can select one, and then you have to hold shift, and you get that plus or minus sign next to your cursor, and you select the next one. So now I have both of these selected. And I can pick them both up. I'm going to press the left arrow to lock onto the green axis, control to copy, and I'm going to place it and do 19 inches. And now I have my 4 legs. So now that we have our legs, I'm going to make this rail here. And to do that, we just need the rectangle tool again. So I'm going to press R to bring up the rectangle tool. And I'm going to zoom in on one of these legs. And I'm going to make this rail I'm going to make it a 1/2 inch by 3 inches. And I want this on the green axis. So the rectangle tool can lock onto different axes too. This is the blue axis. That's the red one. This is the green one. So I want the green one. So I'm going to press the left arrow to lock onto the green axis. I'm going to pull out the rectangle, and I'm going to do 0.5 inch, comma, 3 inches. And now I want to select the whole thing. I'm going to click 3 times, and I'm going to go to the move tool and try to find the midpoint. So you can select the edges of this, and a lot of times you can find the midpoint. So I'm going to do that. I want to lock onto this red axis now by pressing the right arrow, and I'm going to put this rectangle in the middle of this leg. So I'm going to find the middle of this leg too. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into a component. And a component is kind of like a group, but a component, if you copy a component and then you make a change to the copy of the component, it makes a change to the original too. Whereas a group, everything is unique. A component, they're all exactly the same. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. So I'm going to make a component, and you can name them. I'm going to name this chair rail. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the move tool, select this at the middle. I'm going to press the right arrow to lock onto the red axis. I'm going to press Control to make a copy of it, and I'm going to go over to this leg. And I'm going to put this one in the middle as well. So now I have two, but I want them on these legs too. So I'm going to select both of those, and I'm going to get the rotate tool, which is up here, or you can press Q and click. And what I do is you can click to set the anchor point basically. Then you can click again to set where you're going to start rotating, and then click a third time when you want to stop. But we also want to make this a copy, so I'm going to press Control. So now I have a copy. I'm going to press again. But if you mess this up like that, that's not the angle we want. You can just type in 90, and it'll give you a 90-degree rotation. So I'm going to keep these both selected, and I'm going to select this on the midpoint. I'm going to put it in the same spot on these legs. So now, since they're components, I can go in to edit this one, and I can select it, and I'm going to get the push-pull tool by pressing P, and I'm going to pull this rectangle out to make the rail. And you'll see that all of the other rectangles will be affected by this. So now the base of the chair is done, basically. We just need this seat, which I'll do in a second. Okay, so now for the seat, I'm going to take the rectangular tool again. I'm going to press R, and I'm going to select this corner over here. And I want the rectangle to end over here on this far corner. So this is like the full size of the base. But I want it to have an inch of an overhang. So I'm going to triple click to select the entire square, and I'm going to use this tool called the offset tool, and you can find it right here, or you could press F. So I'll just show you what the offset tool does, because it's kind of hard for me to explain, but I'm going to click right here on the edge, and I'm going to pull the square out a little bit. And if I click again, you see it's made a bigger square with the same like ratio or dimension, I guess, but this has been pulled out a couple inches. But I want it to only be pulled out 1 inch, so I'm going to Control Z to undo that. And I'm going to pull this out, click, and I'm going to type 1 inch. And now I have a 1 inch overhang. But I don't want this middle square. I just want this outer square to be the only square that I have. So with this selected, actually I'll show you an easier way to do it. This is the eraser tool. You can click it up here, or you could press E for eraser, and you just carefully, because anything you touch while erasing will get erased. So if I was trying to erase this square, but I did it like this, now that leg is gone. So Control Z to undo that. I just want to erase this line, this line, this line, and this line. So now that's all gone, and every time I do that, I want to make sure that I didn't erase anything else, because you can get like a few more steps into your model and then realize you accidentally erased something, and then you have to go back and fix it. But that's fun. So I'm going to make this a group. I'll triple click it, make group. So now it's protected. I'm going to double click on it again so I can go back into it. I'm going to make this seat with the push-pull push-pull tool by pressing P. I'm going to pull this seat up 1 inch. So type 1 inch. That didn't work. Sometimes it doesn't work and you have to redo it. That's okay. So 1 inch. And then that's the seat. So now the last thing that we need to model for this chair is this back right here. And we actually have the components and groups already built so that we can make that. So we actually don't have to model anything new. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this leg here. I'm going to hold shift, select this other leg, and I'm going to select this rail. And I'm going to press the M for move tool. I'm going to select this chair leg by the bottom. I'm going to press the up arrow so it locks onto that blue axis. And I'm going to press control so that becomes a copy. And then I can just put that, I can rest those legs right on here. So I'm going to select this rail and move it down a couple inches. So I'm going to drag it out to any point, and I'm just going to type 2 inches. And now I'm going to make a copy. So I'm going to select it with the move tool. I'm going to lock onto the blue axis. I'm going to make it a copy. And I'm going to bring it down so it's exactly on the edge, the bottom edge of this first rail. So I'm going to click right there. And now I'm going to select it again and bring it down 2 inches. And the reason I do that is just because I personally am bad at math. So you could move this, and like if you know that this is 3 inches tall, you can be like, well, 3 plus 5 or 3 plus 2 is 5, so move it down 5 inches. And that's exactly where you need it to be, but I'm bad at math, so I just do that to be safe. So once you learn all these tools, you can just work however is most comfortable for you. So now the chair has been completely modeled. We don't have to make anything new. And now I'm going to show you how to paint it like this, which is really easy. You just go to the sidebar over here. There's lots of different tabs, but we're going to go to this one at the top called Materials. I'm going to click on that. And from here, you have a lot of different textures. You can press this drop-down menu, and you can find different categories. You can have asphalt and concrete. You can have landscaping. This has like grass and gravel and things like that. So there's a lot of different stuff that you can use to paint with. But we're going to go down to the bottom, which is wood. And I'm just going to take wood cherry, whatever one you want to use. It's fine. And you just kind of select that by clicking on it. And you just click whatever group you want to paint. And so you could go through and do these each individually. What I would just do is select the whole thing. And there. And now I want to make this whole chair a group, because if I just try to move this, it's just going to move the individual pieces. So now, select the whole thing by dragging over it, right click, and make a group. So now your chair is one object instead of a bunch of different ones put together. And if you wanted to go back in and edit, you could double click and you can edit these things again. Or you could right click and press explode, which is, I wouldn't have named it that because that just doesn't really sound very helpful to explode something, but that just makes it so that it's not a big group anymore. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is this person here. Her name is Laura, I think, actually, on the outliner. Yeah. Her name is Laura, and Laura is pretty useful because she is 5 feet. She's 5 foot. She's like 5'7" or 5'6" or something. So she's like, you know, the size of a regular person. She's a little short, but what she's useful for is if you didn't have her, I'm just gonna delete her really quick. If you didn't have her and you were making this chair and you weren't really thinking about how, like, the size that the chair is. So if you made this like well, you know, if you just weren't thinking about the exact measurements of everything, but you were making a chair, it looks fine by itself. It looks like a chair. But if you brought her back in, you would see now that this chair is like way too big. Chairs just aren't this big. So I find it useful to just, when I'm modeling stuff, after I'm done making it, or if I'm like just going through the process of it, is I just bring her in and I just make sure that she's looks normal next to whatever I'm modeling. And if you have something like this where the chair is too big, there's actually a tool, um, the scale tool. It's right, it's right here, and you can press S to have a shortcut. So with the scale tool, you can select any of these green nodes, whatever they are, and I can stretch this in this direction. I can make it wider. I can make this all sorts of strange things, but I usually just use the corner because it preserves the dimensions of everything. So this just makes the chair smaller or bigger. And you can, I'm just going to scale it down so that the seat is where her knees are, because that's generally how big a chair is. If you wanted to, you could pull this out and you could press 2, and that would make it twice the size. You could press 4. Now it's 4 times the size. I'll just do 1. So that's just another way of using that. But yeah, that's the scale tool, and it comes in handy sometimes. So that was everything that I wanted to cover in this video. That's what I think is kind of the basics of SketchUp. And I hope it was helpful to some people. When I first started out with SketchUp, it was kind of daunting having all these tools that I had no idea what they were called or what they did. So it could be a little bit overwhelming at first, but once you get used to it, it can be a pretty good program to use. So thank you for watching.